Gillian Tett wrote over the weekend that perhaps you need a psychologist to understand what's going on with Trump and these tariffs and not an economist. How much appetite for pain does he have?
All right, so MSNBC created a very interesting scenario that I have not heard anybody else talk about. The potential for these tariffs to last a very long time, despite countries lining up at the door with the United States, willing to make a better deal than we already had. We will get to that later, but let's just try to get through this. Please don't click away from the video. We have to get through this so we know what MSNBC is talking about. It's quite ridiculous, and for entertainment purposes, I think you'll enjoy this. Let's get to it.
Gillian Tett wrote over the weekend that perhaps you need a psychologist to understand what's going on with Trump and these tariffs and not an economist. How much appetite for pain does he have? I mean, to Zanny's point about that, you know, he could pull the rug in a couple of days. Is this somebody who still has echoes of that 2016 Donald Trump who really did talk about my markets all the time? Because we haven't heard him talking about that recently. Do you think he has the ability to say, okay, that's it, I'm done, in which case this is over?
And back on.
I know, very, very incredible journalism going on here in this interview. Because she kept talking, again, the question was, how much appetite for pain does Donald Trump have? One of the weirdest questions I've ever encountered or seen on any of these clips or meltdowns I've ever covered.
Well, my leaning is, and I agree that he could do that because he cares about himself. He's a narcissist. He cares about populism. He wants to be popular. On the other hand, he could say, this is my once-in-a-lifetime chance to do what I've always wanted to do. When you hear him talk, he does not like international trade. Why should we buy things that other people are making? And so this could, and he's written and cared about.
To give you guys some context, it is true, Donald Trump questions international trade in the context of, hold on, the trade partners have higher tariffs, way higher tariffs on the United States, and it almost makes no sense to either be allies or trade partners with these countries with the very high tariffs. You gotta make sure you put that in there because it's true. Donald Trump has always questioned the stance of the trade and the tariffs between the countries, but now so do the majority of Americans who voted for Donald Trump. We are wondering, why does China, Vietnam, and all these countries, why do they have such high tariffs on the United States?
Tariffs since the 1980s. So this could be the hill he's willing to die on. And if he's going to try to remake the American economy, he has to have high tariffs, not for a couple of years, but for perpetuity.
So again, the implication here, Donald Trump, if he wants to do what he wants to do, he's got to have high tariffs forever, for the longest time. But that's not quite the case, because check out this clip.
Well, I'm looking at the board right now, Sandra, and I'm seeing something I haven't seen in a week or so, and that is some green. I think there's a little green down there on the S&P and the NASDAQ. And by the way, those opened up way down in the morning. Now, the Dow Jones is still in the red a little bit, but that's a relief. I mean, remember, a lot of people were predicting a 2,000-point decline this morning. So I'm happy to see that it's climbing in the right direction.
By the way, no one is doubting or denying that, yes, we know that the stock market is going down. And by the way, later in this video, I want you guys to check out Tesla stock because I do really think this destroys that Democrat narrative that Donald Trump is in bed with Elon Musk and they're trying to make all this money, or Elon from Donald Trump. Turns out their stocks are also going down again, more so than they were before. We'll get to that later. But again, the point is, you know, we knew this was going to happen, but Trump made it very clear. The tactic here is to force the other countries to come to the table and make sure we have a fair deal. Now check this out.
I'm not a big tariff guy, as you know. I think Trump is a master negotiator. I think what has to happen next, if we recover the losses, and I've lost a lot of money over the last week or so, I don't know about you and Robert, but these foreign leaders have to give Donald Trump a phone call. Sandra, it's very simple. And they have to say, look, we're ready to sit down at the bargaining table. We're ready to bring our tariffs down. That's the right thing for them to do, Sandra. Their tariffs are 2, 3, 4 times higher than ours are. I think Trump is ready to negotiate. And at the end of the day, if he can win, and look, Robert, I understand what Robert's saying. This is a very risky strategy, but I think it'll work out. And if it does, I really believe in the end of the day, we could have freer and fairer trade that will benefit everyone. But I'm sick and tired of these foreign leaders saying, oh, how dare Donald Trump start a trade war when these countries have tariffs that are multiple times higher than ours are, Sandra.
And to be fair with you, I think this is the part that really irritates me the most. I will concede, if this doesn't work out, this could be the biggest failure for Republicans in a very long time, and this will definitely have a lot of Republicans either turning on Donald Trump or a lot of Republicans losing their seats in the government. I will concede that. But the point I don't understand, why all of a sudden do we not have Democrats come together with Republicans and say, you know what, now is our chance. Now we can tell or ask the EU, hey, can you maybe give us a better deal? Or look at the other Asian partners. This is finally the chance we have. We are at the strongest we've ever been as a country with economics and our military, believe it or not. But again, we still have this divide because it's Donald Trump. And I am not the Donald Trump apologist. I understand what's going on. But at the end of the day, the real end goal here is to not have taxes at $150,000 or lower. I don't get why nobody would want that. So we should all be making this push of, hey, if you want to get rid of taxes, we need these better deals with other countries, but it looks like people don't actually want that. Now, one thing I find so interesting, I noticed that nobody's really talking about Tesla right now, despite the fact that we had these massive protests throughout the United States, according to Democrats, called the hands-off protest. But one thing you'll notice is that Democrats and left-leaning media and some Republicans, they're like, you know, the stock market is crashing, Donald Trump is ruining the economy. Does this mean now all of a sudden Democrats really care about Tesla, or is it gaslighting, or is it selective hearing or selective outrage? These are some of the things I am seeing. Now, these are my opinions. Again, I do find it interesting that Tesla is not being talked about. What I think is it doesn't currently fit the narrative because no matter how you tackle the Tesla situation, it doesn't work. Considering one of the biggest arguments has always been, well, Elon Musk, he's trying to make more money by siding with Donald Trump. That argument didn't work, and it especially doesn't work right now considering Tesla is losing more money as we speak, considering the entire stock market is going down. So I don't know what Democrats are going to do with this situation. It looks like they're just not going to talk about it. Let me know if you've noticed that nobody's talking about Tesla right now.
Kristen, what I like is data. And if we look at data from President Trump's first term, and there's a big study that just came out from a group of economists, mostly at MIT, that showed that a 20% tariff on China led to a 0.7% tax or price level increase over 4 years. I think that's pretty good. If we can take in 20% in tariffs and it's a 0.7% increase. And Kristen, the little publicized story this week, everyone wants to look at the stock market going down. You know what else went down? Oil prices went down almost 15% in 2 days, which impacts working Americans much more than the stock market does.
And this is the part, I think, where Democrats are going to end up losing the information war. I think Republicans right now are actually not doing a good job talking about all of this stuff. Obviously, algorithms, different conflicts around the world, information is a weird space to get out to the public. But right now, I do think Democrats do have the upper hand as far as, you know, look at the stock market, it's crashing, because to everyday Americans, that is the perfect visual to see. Well, it's red going down bad. But so are the gas prices, and to the point of Donald Trump's Secretary of the Treasury here, one thing that I don't understand, one thing he doesn't understand, one thing that a lot of Republicans don't understand, why are Democrats so outraged right now that billionaires are losing money, that CEOs are losing money? Think about that one. I think we have the weirdest narrative flip I've ever seen, because if we're going to be consistent that we're upset that the stock market is going down, like the point I made before, does this not mean now you're outraged that Elon Musk is losing money in the stock market as well? I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments. I think it's rather odd.
Interest rates hit their low for the year, so I'm expecting the mortgage applications to pick up.
Well, just to be very clear, though, I mean, during President Trump's first terms, the cost to Americans was nearly $80 billion in new taxes due to his tariffs. Prices did go up on everything from washing machines to tires.
Well, no, but let's go back. The aggregate number was 0.7, so we can discern the individual things. Also, households saw real net wages go up. So if wages go up faster than prices, which is not what happened over the past 4 years, that's why the bottom 50% got eviscerated.
Again, great interview, and I just found that comparison so weird. Washing machines went up and tires. I think no matter how you try to skew those numbers, we could have a 20% decrease on washing machine and tires. They're still gonna seem expensive. But the point is, again, Donald Trump's numbers speak for themselves on the larger scale. But again, I do think, and I will concede, Donald Trump will have an issue if this plan does not come together here. I think he has about a month or two before we really figure it out, but according to the data, there are countries lining up. In fact, as I make this video, I am getting notifications left and right. Israel to eliminate the trade deficit and trade barriers as I'm making this video. So again, this is happening in real time. And since we're here, we might as well see what Israel has to say, because I am curious how they have reacted to these tariffs. Will we ever know if this was planned or not? I don't know, but what we do know is Israel is willing to drop the tariffs or at least make a better deal.
President, a very simple thing. We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're going to also eliminate trade barriers, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily. And I think Israel can serve as a model for many countries who ought to do the same. I recognize the position of the United States. It says, you know, we're allowing other countries to put tariffs on us, but we don't put tariffs on them. And, you know, I'm a free trade champion, and free trade has to be fair trade. And I think that's basically the position that you have put forward, Mr. President. We are going to eliminate the tariffs, and rapidly. I had the opportunity to speak to Secretary Lupnick yesterday. We talked about how we could effect this quickly, and I hope to bring a solution very quickly. We're not talking about intentions. We're not talking about just words. We're talking about results. And those results are going to come in.
All right, we will have to see how the world reacts to this. Now, I will be honest, without a doubt, the United States and Israel have a very different relationship than a lot of other countries, culturally speaking, religiously speaking, militarily speaking. Again, so we don't know exactly what was happening behind closed doors. We don't know if there's another deal going on. So again, in real time, we can actually see that countries are actually lining up. The first one being Israel. And again, I will concede that Israel is in a different category, as far as our relationship with Israel. But we'll just have to wait and see. The big news, or the big moment we are all waiting for, is whether or not China is going to concede their position and actually try to work with the United States, considering Donald Trump said we will put 50% tariffs on you. So again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, but we do have indicators that countries are getting hurt by this and they need to work with the United States. This is quite the opposite narrative we are hearing, that the stock market is crashing, everything is falling apart. This is true. The stock market is theoretically crashing, if you want to call it that, or it's getting lower, but we are still at its highest point. So let's see what happens. God bless, and we'll see you guys later.